there, I believe. All right. I think we're good to go, guys. Fire away on the questions. You can fire them right on Facebook if you like. If you join us on Facebook Live, also if you're listening on IndianaSportsBeat.com or thedailyhoosier.com or doingtruth.net, you can put your questions there as well. The text line is 812-269-6367. You can hit the questions on there as well for comments. Chris, with a healthy IU, Archie Miller coach's team looks a lot better. Archie Miller should have coached a lot better with healthy players, Todd.
Yeah, well, when those players play better, then any coach looks good. But that's, this is a game that you have to enjoy the positives. They go on a road in a must-win game, and they play well. They do all the things that everyone says they need to do. And they look like an NCAA tournament team, and obviously they need that. They need every ounce of luck and the ball bouncing their way and playing well and everything to look good and that they can get right now. And they definitely did what they needed to tonight.
Well, tonight things started off very good for Indiana. I noticed right off the bat they had a lot of guys scoring. Early on, you had 4 out of the 5 guys that scored very early. You could tell that the ball was being distributed. The ball was going to different guys. Different guys were getting touches. Except for Romeo. He's probably the one who had the least amount of touches in this entire game, as he still ended up with just, I think, 10 points on the night. Had 9 for a long, long time. But Indiana gets a lot from a lot of people tonight.
Yeah, they did. And that's, this is the kind of game that you wanted to have. If they squeak this out in a win and beat a not very good Illinois team, it's a lot different to the committee. When they come out and dominate basically the whole game. I mean, from the 30 minutes of this game, they dominated, and that's the kind of win that they had to have. We are so excited about it. We're like giddy about this because we haven't had too many opportunities to laugh through a second half, and it got down to I think 11 or 12 points in the second half, but for the most part, it was domination from about the 10-minute mark on.
Thanks a lot, guys, for joining us. We're coming to you live tonight from Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, as we've been here a few times. Todd Leary after the game with Todd Leary, of course. I'm Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. Questions, comments, you can put them on Facebook Live, wherever you're watching the broadcast or listening to the broadcast. You can also text us at 812-269-6367 is the text line. You can hit us up with questions or comments there as well. Indiana, this is the team that people have been looking for. We've been looking for this team that gets scoring from a myriad of places, that gets production from a lot of different places, and it got a lot of different things from a lot of different people tonight. And this is the team that people have been looking for all year. And better late than never, and you couldn't be peaking at a better time if you're Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, you just hope it's not one game late. You hope it's not one of those bad losses away from getting into the tournament, because you're right. They're playing this game as well as they played this season, I think, against a quality opponent. I mean, it's a Big Ten opponent on their home court on senior night. That's not an easy win, no matter where you are. And they're playing. They came out and played the way that they needed to in this game. They didn't just win; they won in a dominating fashion. They scored a lot of points in the paint. They took a team that turns a lot of teams over, forces a lot of turnovers, and they handled the ball. They did a great job being aggressive. When you try to not turn it over against a team that really makes their living off of turning you over, and you're not aggressive against it, you're feeding right into them. And boy, Indiana did a great job. That 30 points in the first half in the paint, that's an obvious indicator of how aggressive they were being at taking the ball to the basket.
Yeah, this is a team that had struggled taking care of the ball. And tonight it was a huge worry because Illinois doesn't do a lot of things well, but one thing they do well is turn the ball over for other teams.
Yeah.
They force their opponent into turning the ball over on 21% of their turnovers. Indiana was 7 on the night. That's pretty daggone good for this team.
It is, and you can see Illinois' defense and what they try to do is they almost force you to drive the ball into the lane. They're forcing you, instead of staying between their man and the basket, they almost kind of force you into a double team and expect teams to not be aggressive with it and try to pass back out of it, and that's where they get a lot of steals and turnovers. And Indiana did the opposite. They did exactly what you need to do, and they drove the ball inside the lane, they drove the ball to the basket, and they finished when they got there. I mean, you mentioned how many different guys scored early in this game, and it was because guys were taking it in. Deron Davis with 3 assists in the first half, not to mention his 3 baskets. I mean, everyone, I think you could really go down the list, other than maybe Al Durham. I think everyone played probably at their expectations or above the expectations of what we have for them in this game.
Absolutely. Kimberly's checking in from Iowa. Thanks a lot, Kim. We appreciate you, especially out in Iowa. I know we've got Doug down in Australia, down under. Ryan says we were lethal at Briggs. Says the best overall performance since the Marquette game. This may be their best performance of the season because this was a conference game, and it comes after all year of missing this. You can see it coming. It's been coming here of late. They've been playing obviously well enough to beat Wisconsin and to beat Michigan State. 2 teams that are much, much better than Illinois. But this was a complete game by Indiana across the board, getting, like I said, production from a myriad of different sources, but not one guy. And Juwan Morgan was back tonight, too. Yeah. He'd kind of been disappeared a little bit production-wise, but tonight he's definitely on the board. One of 5 Hoosiers in double figures.
Yeah, and I mean, there was just the effort. I think the effort was great. I think everybody that came in had energy and was excited to be in the game. And then not only that, they played well. They did positive things when they came in. And guys were driving the ball and finding open guys and finishing 3-point plays when they got in the lane and got fouled. This is – I'm not going to turn negative here, but this is what we, I think, expected throughout most of the season. And I'm telling you, if we'd have seen this effort in the Nebraska game and in the Rutgers on the road game and in the, some of those losses that just should not have happened, scoring 46 points against Purdue. I mean, if we'd seen this kind of effort, I think some of those results would have been different for sure.
Here's some numbers that all season long we're missing. Justin Smith, he follows up the game of his career with another perfect game for him. He was 7 of 12 from the field. He took no three-pointers. He had 15 points and was 1-of-1 free throw line. He had 7 rebounds. That's a great night, and that's what Indiana needs from him. If they can get that consistently, this is what I think you'll see from this team. And Rob Finney right there with him, 17 points, also on 7 of 12 shooting, just 1 of 4 behind the arc. But another good night for him, 5 assists for Rob Finney. Those are the performances this team has been needing to get in conjunction with other performances.
No doubt. I mean, 17 points and 5 assists and no turnovers out of your point guard. That's a severely different effort or different output than we've had out of him in a lot of games. And I mean, he's not made that many turnovers, but his aggressiveness on the offensive end has just not been there. And for him to take that many shots tonight was one of the difference makers in this game, no doubt about it.
Ed points out that, hey, Todd, Justin did not put up a single three-pointer.
It's almost like he was trying to make my day, Ed. I don't agree with you.
But it was a perfect night for him. 7 of 12, man, all day long.
I said in the last game, he can take 19 shots a game if they're all inside the lane. I'm all for that. He shot a couple of shots. I think he shot 3 shots outside the lane, kind of little fadeaway jumpers. He made 2 out of 3 of them. I don't love that shot, but anything he gets around the basket and in the lane, I'm fine with. He's not a three-point shooter. If he works on it over the summer, he can come back and shoot threes next year. But he is not a three-point shooter, and this is a great game from him.
Ron said Indiana looked great passing ball, and boy, did they, because tonight they had 17 assists on 36 made shots.
Yeah, that's just good. I mean, all those stats are just textbook. I mean,
and 7 turnovers.
That's exactly what you want to have. I mean, you've got just terrific output out of so many different guys. I mean, it's hard to say. You couldn't really pick a player of the game in this. There's just so many guys that at great points in the game that had huge impacts and made a difference. And so many times I said in this game, that's a huge basket. That's a huge basket. Because you don't want to give the momentum back to Illinois. It's a senior night. The crowd wants to get into it. They're staying until the game's over, no matter what. And Indiana, for the most part, they were solid on almost every possession in that second half, and that's just so great to see.
Jennifer says she's her Mrs. Todd Leary commenting without the fish.
I'm glad to have him here.
We're glad to have him here instead, though. But thanks a lot, Jennifer.
Thank you, Doug. I miss being with Don Fisher.
Doug Snyder, Rob, and Devontae were great tonight, and add Deron Davis to that. Again, Deron Davis and Devontae Green, 2 guys that were part of the missing quotient in the middle of this year. Man, Devontae, another great game for Devontae. I remember his stats. He had a really good night. 11 points, 4 of 6 shooting, 3 of 5 behind the three-point line, 4 rebounds, 6 assists. And how many turnovers? Zip. 0 turnovers. What a night for Devontae. A good night for him. Everybody had a good night. Maybe Illinois is the perfect medicine.
I mean, I'm not. I'm just pointing out something that happened in the game that you and I have talked about in the last couple of weeks, and that is there was a lot of time tonight on the floor where Devontae Green was on the floor with Rob Finney, which means he got to play that two-guard position, which is his natural position. And this is 2 games in a row. He's looked much more comfortable being on the court. He's made 3 3-pointers in both of the last 2 ball games. And I really feel a lot of that has to do with the fact that the ball's not in his hands. He's getting to come off screens. He's getting to catch it after it's kicked back out to him. And when he catches that ball that comes in, back out from the inside, that's the shot everybody wants him to take. Coaching staff, all the other players, everyone wants him to take that shot. And he's done a great job making it with 6 threes in the last 2 games.
There's a lot of talk of some transfers after the season, and John says now he kind of doesn't want anybody to transfer. This team's playing well together, and they are. They'll point out only 7 turnovers. That's huge, especially, again, for a team. Illinois, they turned the opponent over 21% of their possessions. And for Indiana to only have 7 turnovers against this type of pressure defense, great night for them. But it's also a great sign that their offense is coming to them, and these guys are feeling a lot more confident in what they're doing.
Yeah, there's no question. When you can have that many more possessions, I mean, let's just say this average game for Indiana would have been a 15 to 17 turnover game. That's 10 less possessions you have a chance to score on. And you know, that's kind of where they've been in these games. And 17 turnovers, we wouldn't probably even be talking about it as that bad of a day. I mean, that's kind of been the average of what they've had. But when you get down at 2 ball games in a row and really take care of the basketball, that's 3 halves in a row where I think they have a total of like 9 turnovers in the last 3 halves. That's solid basketball right there.
Something else, early on in the game, I was watching Rob Finney. He has really manned up as far as growing strength, strong, and playing the point guard position for Indiana. He has really grown, and my gosh, he is going to be something for the next 3 years for them.
Well, people remember Yogi Ferrell as a senior, but people don't remember him as a freshman. And as a freshman, I don't think he was this good. I honestly don't. I mean, there was parts of his game, especially shooting the basketball, where he was not as good as Rob Finney. Now, he might have finished a little bit better. He was more aggressive offensively, I think, than Rob has been. He was much like we saw Rob tonight. But this just shows you the potential of where Rob Finney could get to, because he's had a heck of a freshman year, and right now he's put himself up there as one of the better freshman years that Indiana's seen in a long time.
Absolutely. Ed points out that since Justin got sat down in the Iowa game, played 6 minutes in that game, his play since then has been unbelievable. But of course, I've said that all year long, that the bench was a great motivator. But Archie didn't have a bench to use.
Yeah.
Then when he finally got some health, Jerron Davis got a little healthier, and Race Thompson came along. He was able to do that, and what a difference it has made.
It has. There's no doubt about it. And Ed, that's a great point that you bring up there, because I don't know that I would have related it to that, but you're right. Ever since that situation, he only played 6 minutes. He has had a different look to him. And, I know I got on him for shooting so many threes in the last ball game, but the game he played tonight that's the Justin Smith that Indiana needs. And if they have that, I'll tell you, I really hope that they play well in the next ball game and get a couple of wins in the Big Ten tournament and get into the NCAAs, because right now this is a team no one would want to play. No seed would want to play Indiana right now.
Indiana's a team that people do not want to play right now, because they are playing with great confidence. Mary Powers points, love your Hoosiers in Evansville, where you can catch us Indiana Sports Beat every day on the rep 97.7 in Evansville at 11 a.m.
Driving back through there in about 3 hours from now, Mary.
So check us out there. But yeah, and then Jennifer points out the Big Ten tournament has never been a friend of IU basketball. Is this the year?
We hope.
Stranger things have happened, I guess. But man, the way they're playing right now, they are peaking at the right time. And you saw Indiana goes on the road into a place that they've never played greatest on the road at Illinois. Illinois is
That's a tough place to play. No matter
final
what.
game for them.
Yep.
But man, they dominated this game tonight, and they did it from the beginning. They opened up the game well. They opened up the second half well. They opened up with a 5 or 8 point run.
Yeah.
That's something that they hadn't done this year.
Yeah, Jawan scored 5 points right off the bat there to start that second half, which really just kind of deflates the home team. You know, they want to come out of halftime. I'm sure they were all pumped up, and they got them going right before they come out for the half. And when Indiana just takes control of it like that, it just deflates the crowd, it deflates their players, and you can tell Indiana dominated that whole second half. I mean, other than maybe a 1 or 2 minute run there with about 6 minutes to go, Indiana dominated the half, and that's the performance they needed to show the committee tonight.
They didn't have a turnover until about 6 minutes to go in the first half. I think that was their first turnover.
And that was actually you mentioned it. You gave them the jinx right before that and said they did not have a turnover. In that possession, they turned it over.
It lasted right after that, but they'd gone long enough. But this is the team that has had double-digit turnovers most of the season.
In multiple halves.
17 in a game at least, but tonight they have 7. Last week they had 2 in the last half against Michigan State. This team is really taking care of the ball well now. They're moving the ball. They're moving on offense. And you talked about having Devontae in. It allows Romeo to move a lot more, because I saw there was a lot of times where he was actually moving and catching the ball on the fly, and that's a lot more dangerous when you got him moving.
It is, and this was, I said it earlier, that this is a team that they try to turn you over because they play a weird defense where they almost kind of get behind you and force you to drive the ball in. And if you are not aggressive with it, it really is effective. But like we said, Indiana obviously had a really good game plan. I think we have, the fans around the state have been on Archie a little bit, and the coaching staff, maybe for some of the decisions that have been made in games. Well, this game is one you can obviously tell what the game plan was, and that was drive the ball to the lane as hard as you can and finish when you get in there. And when you can execute a game plan like that, you come out with results that Indiana had tonight.
Well, as Ray pointed out, the players looked engaged and looked like they were enjoying playing together. And that's something we didn't see this year. You talked about positive touches. Man, they looked like a team that wanted to play together tonight.
They looked like a team that knew they needed to play well to make it to the tournament. They're excited about it. They've kind of thrown caution to the wind, and they're just out there playing hard, making aggressive plays, going to the basket, knocking some shots down. It's funny how those shots tend to go in when things are going your way, when you're playing hard. And that's where they're at. I mean, we didn't just complain about them not making shots before. We complained about their effort, and they kind of go hand in hand. And when they are not playing hard and the shots are not going down, and right now everybody feels pretty good about themselves, the shots start to go down, and that's when you're confident and you could beat anyone. Indiana has the makeup to be able to beat anyone in the country, and that's a scary thing for whoever they would get to play if they do make the tournament.
John points out they looked comfortable playing on the road. A fun game to watch. Love beating the Illini, but that's another thing. They looked comfortable on the road. It didn't matter where they were. They just looked comfortable playing this game tonight. They looked comfortable in their own skin, maybe for the first time this season.
I said it. It's not. It's just gone kind of unnoticed. I think because Romeo has so much, publicity about him, and people are watching him all the time. But Rob Fennessy's demeanor as a freshman point guard, I mean, he's basically been the point guard the whole year long, and he's come in and really looked like a junior or senior out on the court as a freshman, as a true freshman. This kid has taken on a lot more. I was not a huge Rob Fennessy fan when he came in. I was really excited to see what kind of year he would have, and I'll tell you, I couldn't have been more wrong. He has surprised me, not just in his abilities, but his demeanor and his attitude and keeping his cool out on the court and just playing calm and never getting really out of control. And that's not an easy thing to do, trust me. I had many out of control possessions. So I'm ultimately impressed with how Rob Fennessy has played this year.
Before I forget, I want to thank, we're here at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, coming to you live tonight. Feel free to come out. A great place to watch a game. Great food. It's awesomely good. So thanks to Mike Stockton and the crew here at Bubba's 33, as they always take care of us so well. Also, Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. Been taking care of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Jay and Roger Reynolds take care of your family. They do a great job, and we appreciate them. Sweetland, waste removal and recycling. Big John Sweetland, a big friend of the show. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you take care of Sweetland as they cover Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. and also the Graduate Hotel in Bloomington, where we do the daily show from. So make sure you follow us there. Each and every day, you can catch Indiana Sports Beat. We're live 6 to 8 in the morning. You can catch us on thegruelingtruth.net, indianasportsbeat.com, or thedailyhoosier.com. In addition to WXVW 1450 96.1 in Southern Indiana, Louisville, or 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. Lots of places you can find us each and every day. Todd's with us each and every Friday, and of course after the game, each game. And glad to join us here tonight as Indiana knocks off Illinois. Big game. And before I forget, the Indiana women, they played in the Big Ten tournament tonight. They took on Minnesota, a team that Minnesota had beaten Indiana earlier this year. Pretty big. But Indiana wins 68-58. A big game for Allie Pattenberg, 20 points and 7 rebounds. Brianna Wise, 19 points. Jalen Penn, 11 points and 8 rebounds. Indiana playing very well on the women's side, too. So they will continue in the Big Ten tournament tomorrow. We'll catch up with you on the Indiana Sports Beat in the morning, so you can check us out for that. As the men's tournament starts next week. But Indiana has one more game now. They have to play at home against Rutgers, a great team to finish the season out with. But this is a team that is rolling. They are playing very well. And now we talked about this earlier. We don't know where Indiana's going to play in the Big Ten tournament. We don't know if they're playing on a Wednesday yet or Thursday. And if they win out, they still may have to play on a Wednesday. I think that's to their advantage for getting an extra win. And because winning 2 games in the Big Ten tournament would put them at 19 wins on the season. That's pretty damn good.
And when you get to that point, I mean, people say at the end of the year that, they say they have 19 wins or 20 wins or whatever it is. They don't say, oh, yeah, but the last 2 were against Rutgers and Illinois. They don't say that. They say you've got 19 wins. And that is that's a huge difference especially when you look at this team were they 14 and 14? 14 and 14?
Especially when 6 of those wins are quad 1 wins.
Yeah, true.
When you're one of the tops in the country at that.
Yeah, so I mean, there's just I love the point that Paul brought up there a minute ago about where he brought up
14 and 1. Oh, you missed it.
Yeah, what was it? No, Romeo buying into the defense, buying into his defense. That is noticeable. Like, there's no doubt about it. He's got some pride in his defense right now. He's moving his feet. That's a great point that Paul brought up.
Because he played 34 minutes, and he had 9 points, maybe at the half. I forget. But he didn't score a lot tonight. He didn't take a lot of shots, but he played a lot. So he's out there the whole time. So he's obviously playing defense while he's out there.
And we mentioned it in the Michigan State game. It was kind of a one-on-one battle going back and forth with he and Henry, and his defense was noticeable. He took pride in his defense, and I'll tell you what, if you want to look at improvements throughout the year, no one talked about Romeo being a great defender when he came into Indiana, but right now he is a solid defender, and he with his athletic ability and able to move his feet and his quick jump that he's got, I mean, he's a tough guy to score against. So that's a great point that Paul brought up there.
He also pointed out, and I'm not sure this is accurate, but he says that IU was 14 and 1 when they have 14 or more assists. Which tonight, a very good night assist-wise, a lot of assists, and that's been the last 2 games in a row. Low turnovers, high assists. That is something this team has not done this entire season.
It's amazing how offenses look good when you have stats like that. And obviously there's a correlation between the two, but your offense has to be clicking in order for you to have those kind of assist numbers. And Indiana early in the year was much more dribble, shoot, as opposed to moving the basketball and getting a shot off of an assist. And when they do that, I mean, every team is tough to beat when they're getting a bunch of assists. And teams that score a lot of points, but, most of the baskets are coming off of guys doing one-on-one moves, that's called the NBA. When teams do that in college, they're generally not all that successful. And Indiana has proven that this season. When they've been that way, they haven't beaten a lot of teams, and right now they look pretty good doing it with a lot of assists.
Hey, how are you, sir? Kinsey joining us as well. Tom says, looked like Illinois even tried a zone at one point. Nothing got in the way of this team, Indiana, tonight. They shot the ball extraordinarily well. They did not do that against Michigan State as much, but tonight they shoot 55%. They make 36 baskets. That's 10 more. They shot 13 more shots than Illinois. That's a good start right there, especially when you're hitting 55%. And then behind the 3 tonight, they hit 7. Not as many as I thought it would take. I thought it would take 9 because when Indiana hits 8 or 9 or 10 threes, they haven't been beaten this year. So once they get that going, it's a great night.
You gave me a stat early on where Indiana had shot 17 threes, and that was fairly early on in the game, and they finished with 20. So they didn't settle for the outside shot. And you could tell I missed the very beginning of the game, and I know you said they shot a bunch of threes at the beginning of the game, but I think there might have been a timeout that was called there or at a TV timeout, and they said, hey, drive the ball to the basket like we told you, because it was definitely a focus. And from about that 8-minute mark of the first half on, everything was going downhill into the lane, into the basket, going into defenders and finishing on three-point plays. It was the offense was fun to watch tonight.
Absolutely it was. And again, the turnovers for a team that had such problem with that, and against a team that specializes in that, to only have the first half turnovers they had, I think they had, 2? So they had 4 for the last 2 halves. They only had 2 in the second half against Michigan State, 2 in that first half against Illinois today, and then 5 in the second half. A great performance all the way around by all of the guards. And again, you brought this up, and I think it's been a great combination of having Devontae with Al Durham in there and Rob Finney. It's like he's a calming influence on all of that.
I totally agree. I mean, when you get Devontae to be able, and he's going to have to spell Finney from time to time. There's no doubt about that. But I also like what Indiana's done a little bit. When that happens, you'll see Romeo bring the ball up. Devontae is not a point guard, no matter what his size is or who's on the floor or not on the floor. He is not a point guard. He's not comfortable bringing it up the floor. He's not good at it, and he doesn't. Indiana's offense doesn't run efficiently when he does that. So I like what Indiana's doing right now and moving him off of the basketball, letting him play 2 guard. I don't care how many guards there are on the floor. I mean, I on some of the best Indiana teams that people would say Indiana has had, I played on some of those teams, and there was 3 guards on the floor the majority of the time. A lot of times there was 4 guards on the floor. So the size doesn't mean a whole lot when it comes to Indiana and taking care of the basketball. And Romeo's big enough and athletic enough to guard bigger guys, and he's proven that.
Absolutely. And then tonight, Indiana, at one point, and I don't know if they finished without to pull it up, but they were scoring at a very efficient. They were very efficient.
You had 1.5 points.
1.5 points per possession. If you don't get that, you can. If you score 2 points a possession, you're killing teams. Oh. It's not even possible. But 1.5 is a high number. And this is all the while. Illinois shot 50% for the game,
and only had 10 turnovers themselves. I mean, they didn't like they threw it away though.
And they hit 10 3-pointers. Right. They shot 48% from the 3-point line. So Indiana did all this while Illinois was not playing that badly. Indiana was just blitzing them, getting a lot more possessions and being very efficient with the ball.
And that points in the paint was huge. I mean, Indiana shot so well because they were taking the ball to the basket, they were scoring inside the lane, and they were forcing Illinois to foul them, and Indiana was finishing on those. And free throw wise, Indiana shoots 13 for 18, over 70% from the free throw line. That doesn't sound like that's a big a deal for most teams, but it is for Indiana. That's a big deal.
Here's the number for you. Points in the paint. Indiana, 52-26 for Illinois.
Doubled them up.
That's a dominant performance there. And again, it goes back to talked about in the last game that Juwan Morgan, and he's been there all along, pulling down rebounds and doing this and that, but he wasn't scoring a lot of points. Tonight, 9 of 14 shooting, 20 points, 9 rebounds, almost another double-double for him, but a great night for Juwan. And just what they need down there is Indiana really tears up the paint. Justin Smith added 15 points to go along with that. So they had an inside-out game going tonight.
Yeah, I'm 15 points and 7 rebounds out of Justin Smith. I mean, I feel like I deserve, or I owe him giving him some kudos on playing well, because I've been so tough on him for shooting so many 3-pointers. But if you can sit there and talk about him getting 15 points and 7 rebounds, not taking any 3-point shots, Indiana is going to be a very, very, very tough team to beat if you're getting that kind of production out of Justin Smith.
Absolutely. And Ed said that IU hasn't played against a zone this year. I don't recall that. I guess I haven't paid enough attention on who's playing what, but
because they don't play Syracuse. Teams don't really play zone. Iowa lost AC Earl, so they don't play zone anymore.
Girl, it's been a minute. What a game has been! This has been the best game I think that Indiana's played this year. And as I said earlier, you couldn't ask for a better time to be peaking if you are Indiana. Because
it's been a while. I mean, it's been a while since they've needed to play well, and they did it. And maybe we shouldn't be celebrating the fact that they beat a mediocre team, but
it's how
they had to do it. Yeah, and they had to do it, and they did, and we've not been able to celebrate that a whole lot. So, I mean, we may be a little more excited than normal, but, it's just nice. It's a good feeling to have a game that you need to win, and not only need to win, but you need to look good in it, and they did. on the road.
Thanks a lot for joining us. We're on Facebook. You can get your questions or comments on Facebook Live. Also, we're on. You can reach us on IndianaSportsBeat.com, on thedailyhoosier.com, or thegruelingtruth.net. You can also hit us on the text line 812-269-6367 with any questions or comments after the game with Todd Leary as Indiana posterizes Illinois tonight. Has had the game of the season for them, and now they have Rutgers coming in on Sunday, another perfect team. But is that good to have a punching bag team, or does this team need someone that it needs to keep being challenged? I don't think this team is one that can sit back and rest on its laurels at all.
No, they need to come out and dominate that game at home just like they did this one tonight. But I guess maybe you could say you would like to have you'd like to have that Michigan State win on the last day of the year, but let's give the committee some time to think about it. We did that a week early, and this just needs to be a dominant performance. Look, the Big Ten tournament is going to be the deciding factor, I think, for Indiana. And whether they get to play on Wednesday, I'm with you. I would love to have that extra should-be W for Indiana. But if they don't, they need to come out and they need to play well, and they need to win a game or two in that Big Ten tournament. And that's not too much to ask. I mean, they need – there's two, maybe three teams at the top of the league that would be a very difficult game to win. Beyond that, all the teams are kind of the same. I mean, once you get down to Wisconsin, Ohio State, Minnesota, Iowa, I mean, all those teams are kind of the same. Indiana, they're all kind of the same.
Well, if you look at the top of the Big Ten, you got Michigan State, Purdue. Indiana has played two of those three teams very well this season. They should have beaten Purdue in the second game in Bloomington. They swept Michigan State. Michigan pretty much had Indiana's number this year. But other than that, Indiana has played well against anybody. They've shown that they can play with anybody. And they haven't been playing this well at all. So if they can take this into the tournament, they can make some noise. I'm not saying that they're going to make the finals or anything like that, but they don't have to. They just have to win some games.
Look how many times you see that happen. I mean, how many times has Iowa gone into this Big Ten tournament with a team that shouldn't be any good and made it to the finals or won the thing? And so it's not out of the question. We just don't ever expect it because Indiana has played so poorly in the Big Ten tournament. I don't want to say recently, forever. They've always played pretty poorly.
Never won the thing. Only been to the championship game one time.
That's crazy.
Ed says, Todd, what emotions did you go through on Senior Day? Senior Day coming up for Indiana.
I'm a bad person to talk about that with. I mean, I cried for 45 minutes while I gave a speech out there, so I was a mess for that thing. And it's the emotion of I'm from Indiana. I loved Indiana basketball my whole life. Our version of church was the Bob Knight Show on Sunday morning. And I love the whole idea of it. I love the fans. I loved every bit of it. And the fact that was over, they give you the microphone and you're a 21-year-old kid out there that doesn't know what he's talking about. And I just blubbered my way through 45 minutes of nothing. But it's a fun tradition. It's a neat thing. When you're older, obviously I wish I had handled it with a little more maturity. But it's an awesome experience. And to have the crowd, very few people leave the stands on that Senior Day, and that's kind of a special thing, and it's neat. And Coach Knight used to make a huge deal about it, and it's there's a lot of emotion when it comes down to that. I still enjoy listening to what all the guys talk about. Don Fisher cries about every year, no matter who it is. I mean, it's emotional and it's fun to watch.
That's a great question, Ed. Thank you very much. Eric Goss says, do you guys think that before the Wisconsin game that Archie got them to think every game is a tournament game since they have played their best basketball? Well, I think he ripped some ass, I'll be honest with you. I don't know what all you said, but obviously sitting Justin Smith down in the Iowa game sent a message with 6 minutes played because he's played the best basketball of his career since then. I think we talked about doing that before, but Archie didn't have the ability to do that before. He didn't have the players to bring off the bench to do that, but it obviously worked and did a good job. They bought in. They're fully bought in to the defense. They're back to playing solid defense across the board. They're doing a great job. They're not turning the ball over. This is a different team.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they probably had that discussion of we've got nothing to lose, and that sucks to be at that point. But they kind of have risen to the occasion and done an unbelievable job of putting themselves in a position. Now, it sucks that they had to get to this point where they have to have these wins, but, that's the case. That's the reality of it, and they've done a good job with the situation and what they've been dealing with.
Roger's joined us. Thanks a lot, Roger. Dave, we're healthy again. Rob's back in control just like he was before the injury. We are looking confident. I think we may be sizing up a glass slipper. Yeah, well, I mean, all those things you said are true. I mean, Indiana's playing the way we wish they had been playing already, but that ship has sailed. They're here now. And making the tournament is not a problem if they just take care of business.
Yep. I mean, you're right. If they play like this, winning 1 or 2 games in the Big Ten tournament is probably almost a given. It's just a matter of repeating this, and that's hopefully we can say they're on a roll and they have confidence. And if they get off to a good start, that's another thing that they've kind of done in the last couple of games. They've not dug that huge hole that they've had to get themselves out of, and they're, let's face it, we've talked about it during the season so many times, they're not a dig out of the hole type of team. They're not that powerful of a scoring team, and they can't get down 15-6 and things like that at the beginning of a ball game. And that's why, the beginning of every game I'm so nervous and I can't sit down and I'm pacing around, because that beginning of the game is that important to them. And this game for Indiana can be over in the first 5 minutes, and that's an unfortunate feeling.
Absolutely. Now this is a team that is playing like a Big Ten team. They're playing like one of the better teams of the Big Ten. That's why that they're still in the NCAA talk. That's why that with the record number of losses they've had, that they're probably going to make the NCAA tournament if they can just win out. Which, if they continue playing like they are right now, there should be nothing stopping this team. If there's a team in the Big Ten that's on the bubble, I don't know who that is. I'm not paying attention to where Iowa is or something like that. But that's a team that does not want to meet Indiana at the Big Ten tournament, because they should have beaten Iowa, even at Purdue. Indiana should have beaten Purdue in the game at Bloomington. But those are the type of teams, I don't think they want to meet Indiana right now in the tournament, because Indiana, first of all, is playing for their lives, and they're playing very well right now.
Yeah, I mean, teams like Ohio State and maybe Minnesota, those kind of teams don't want to meet Indiana right now. Purdue's in no matter what, and they should be. But do you want to have to beat an Indiana for the third time in a season if you're Purdue? Probably not.
And they want as good a seed as they can get, so they don't want to lose to anybody. Sure. They don't want to lose to anybody.
Sure. I mean, they want to get to the finals of the Big Ten tournament and get up there in that 3 seed range, and they've probably played well enough to get to that point. Now, if they have a flop and lose, their first game in the Big Ten tournament, they could be down to a 5 and even 6 seed, which is crazy that could have that big of impact this late in the season. But it's really, that's the way it is, and it's going to depend. Indiana, unfortunately, is going to need to root for all of the, all the number 1 seeds in the low tournaments, or the lower, the Patriot League and all of those conferences. They're going to need those 1 seeds to win, and that way, only one team goes out of those conferences, because if there's a whole bunch of upsets in those bubble teams they're going to drop off each time.
Keep your comments coming. You can post them on Facebook. Any questions, you can also hit us up on the text line 812-269-6367. Off the subject a little, or off the topic a little bit, that asked, who is going to go further in the IHSA tournament, Silver Creek or Jeffersonville? 2 teams down here in southern Indiana. Silver Creek's at 318. I'm going to go with Silver Creek because Jeffersonville's in the Seymour Regional with Bloomington South and with Center Grove, I think. So I'm going with Silver Creek making it further. I don't see Jeffersonville getting out of that section, although Jeffersonville's a good team, but they're all good there. So
seen any of them play, so I can't offer a whole lot to that.
Lawrence North, they're not in it. So
they got beat. They did get beat.
They finally got beat. Who beat them? Because they knocked off Warren Central, didn't they? Somebody, I thought that they did something good. But keep your comments and questions coming. Thanks a lot for joining us. We're coming to you live from Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, Indiana, after the game with Todd Leary tonight. Indiana beats Illinois as they head down the finish of this season, of this 2019 season. The Big Ten season almost over. One more game for Indiana. They'll host Rutgers on Sunday, on Senior Day, and then head into the Big Ten tournament, which starts next week. Indiana trying to continue to bolster their resume to make it to the NCAA tournament. They're sitting in good position right now as they added yet another win. They're sitting now, I think, 16-14 on the season, so they can add another one out on Sunday, go 17-14. And then we talked about earlier, a couple more wins in the Big Ten tournament, puts them at 19 wins. And then I think that they're in solidly if they get a solid win, even if they don't play on Wednesday and they have to play Thursday, and they get a win there, even if they lose the next game, I think that they're in, even at 18 wins.
Yeah, I think that becomes more questionable. That becomes whether some of the lower conferences.
And I think it's who they lose to.
Yeah, and so much of it depends on how many teams get to come out of those smaller tournaments, those smaller league tournaments, and that you want to make sure the Woffords of the world win their league and win their conference tournament, because if they don't, they're going for sure. And that'll take somebody's spot. And every one of those spots, I mean, you know how many, Indiana obviously is one of them, but you know how many teams are fighting for that last 2 or 3 spots.
Another question off the subject. Dave asked, big date, March 15th. Any thoughts? That, of course, that's referring to the commitment date of Keon Brooks. It's come down to a 50-50 coin toss, from what I understand, between Indiana and Kentucky. And everything that I'm hearing is leaning south. It's not leaning towards Bloomington. It's leaning towards Kentucky. But that's just the tea leaves talking.
I mean, I can't.
Until he says it, I don't have a clue.
I can't remember the last player whose final 2 was down to Kentucky and Indiana. I mean, I don't. Most Indiana.
Trey Lyles, maybe.
Was it?
He committed to Indiana, and then he committed to Indiana, and he ended up going to Kentucky.
Yeah, I mean, if I hate to sound negative on this, but if Kentucky is one of your options, you're not going to Indiana. I mean, it's just different. It's a different mentality, and it's a professional mentality.
I don't know that anybody's. I'm not saying he is or isn't. I haven't heard a lot of talk of Keon being a one and done per se, and if that's the case, Indiana's playing well. Does Indiana's season have anything to do with where he's going, you think?
I really don't think so. I don't think Kentucky's or Indiana's does. I think every one of those kids thinks they're going to be the difference maker, and which they should. That's great. I'm not bad-mouthing them for that. I'm saying, like, they don't factor a whole lot into, if Indiana had 4,000 people at their games, then, yeah, that would play a factor into it. But they don't. I mean, they're a 500 team most of the way through the year, and they had 16,000 people at the gym, so...
There you go, Dave. Alberta, how are you? Thanks a lot for joining us. Questions, you can get them in the comments on Facebook Live, of course, or you can send them in on, you can text us on 812-269-6367 with any questions or comments as well. And now, this team has been one we've talked about. They didn't look like they didn't know how to win early on. Now they've done a 180. They have really turned their entire season around.
They
almost win
it. Team, that's for sure.
I mean, they're shooting the ball. They're not lighting it up from outside, but they're getting enough shots going down right now. And as long as that continues, they're just a dangerous team, because that's one of the things that's just been missing, the outside shot for this team. And it makes a huge difference. Ask Tom Izzo how much of a difference it makes.
Yeah, I mean, 7 for 20 is nothing to write home about. But it's a lot better than 7 for 27, and at least, I mean, and they've had many of those situations this year. So, they were in control of this game tonight, and I've said it a couple times already, but that's the most impressive thing to me. I mean, they shot threes when they should have. They didn't force too many of them, and they moved the ball around, and they got it inside the lane. I mean, it's funny how you're willing to live with a lot of other stuff that happens when they're being aggressive, driving the ball to the basket. And as long as they continue to do that, they're going to be extremely difficult for teams to guard and defend. If they stand out there and shoot three-pointers and make 3 of 25, then they're going to be real easy to defend.
And then we go back to this point. We talked about Rob Finney earlier. When your point guard is scoring 17 points on 7 of 12 shooting and pulling down and dishing out 5 assists, you're going to have a good night.
Yeah, with no turnovers. But you can take, I've kind of been saying this all year long. I'm as comfortable with Rob Finney shooting the ball from anywhere on the court as anyone else on the floor, including Romeo, including Jawan. And so, he's kind of shown, he made the huge shot against Butler, but it has nothing to do with that. I mean, him in general, he doesn't take crazy wild shots, and I want him to be more aggressive. Tonight, he shot shots when it wasn't going down to the end of the shot clock. He had drives into the lane. He had 2 drives down the lane in a row that just put the defense in a really tough position, and he scored baskets on both of them. One was a three-point play. So, I mean, he's the game out of him tonight, not just not just the fact that he scored the points, the fact that he was more aggressive offensively, looking for his own shot. And that makes them guard you differently. If they don't think you're going to shoot, you're much easier to defend than when you're a guy that's going to put up 17.
Deron Davis also, Indiana had 5 players in double figures. Deron Davis was not one of them, but he had 9 on 3 of 5 shooting, 3 of 3 at the free throw line. Again, another great night for him. It's a nice little
super
stat
efficient.
line.
Yeah, super efficient. And, he was big defensively.
15 minutes, he scores 9 points.
Yeah, and we talked about him in some of the other games, and he's kind of the eraser for the other team's big man. And he was when he was in the game tonight, you didn't see a whole lot of stuff happening for Illinois inside the lane. I think they were trying to get Juwan in foul trouble. So they were really trying to go at him and drive it in the lane on him. When Duran was in the game, there wasn't a whole lot of stuff that happened, not a whole lot of action for Illinois inside the lane. So he's that neutralizer that erases the other team's inside play and the other team's big guy.
Absolutely. Let's see. Eric, I'm trying to get it rolled down there. Dave, Juwan is the man, but Duran has really helped us get the ball inside and spreading out the floor a little bit. That with Rob coming back, and like Todd said, Devontae being able to catch and shoot. We are completely different than we were a month ago. Something earlier, Deron Davis does a lot of things. One of those is find guys with the ball. He is a great assist man for a big guy.
Yeah, and he has been very patient with the ball. Tonight was a great example of those 3 assists he had in the first half. I mean, those were not easy passes that he made. He's jumping up in the air. We'll call it hang time, I guess, but he's jumping up in the air and finding a wide open Juwan Morgan for baskets. I mean, that's just fun offense to watch. That's more the Indiana offense that I think longtime Indiana fans are used to. And, it's nice to see those easy baskets. How many games has Indiana played where we talked about there weren't any easy baskets? And tonight there was a ton of them. And that was because of the aggressiveness at getting it into the lane and driving in there, finding open guys. And it was fun to watch.
Eric asked, what's the highest seed we're looking for in a Big Ten tourney? I'm guessing that's going to be in a 10 seed.
In the Big Ten tourney?
Yeah. I like out of the first 4.
Yeah, I want them to have a.
I think they'd be better off. We both agree that we think that they'd be better off if they actually had to play on Wednesday this year, which would make them 11 or worse seed, because it just gives them another opportunity for an easier win to add on the tally. So
and I think the committee has made it very clear they don't care where a team finishes in their conference, like what seed they are in their conference.
Indiana's still in the NCAA tournament talk at 14-14,
but in the past, I mean, they made it pretty clear they don't care. They don't care if just because Indiana finishes 11th, they have to take those top 10 above that all into the tournament. They don't look at it that way, and those quality wins for Indiana. If a team like Ohio State doesn't get in and Indiana does, I mean, it's going to come down to those quality wins. And that's a huge, huge factor that they do look at. There's no question they look at who you play, who you've beaten. And Indiana has a pretty good resume when it comes to that.
Here's a great question, David. You were there. Compare this team to the 2001-2 team, number 5 seed that caught fire, went to the Final Four. That was the famous game in Lexington. They beat Duke, number 1 Duke. They were down 17. They beat Kent State. But different team there. Those guys had some shooters on
that. That was the team that had to rely on the three-point line. And you talk about getting hot. Dane Fife even made three-pointers. That's how hot that team got. And so I'm making fun of him because Dane's a good guy. But that team was just, they were electric from the three-point line. And they shot it well in every game. And you had what I consider like the ultimate Indiana point guard in Tom Coverdale. I mean, that guy's as gritty as you're ever going to find. That's what Indiana fans love to watch. That team just, they gelled. They played well together. They had a bunch of guys that had a lot of years under their belt. For the lack of athletic ability that team had, they made up for it in shooting. And so comparison-wise to this team is insanely more athletic and has bigger, stronger guys, but they don't have the shoot. I mean, it's not real comparable. That team had so many shooters. It was crazy.
Dave also pointed out, talking about Deron Davis, great passer and making his free throws. Exactly. He was 3 of 3 at the night tonight. And he's money.
Call that a streak.
He's been money this year. It's so weird. Last year he couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat at the free throw line, but this year he's back to just being ice. Bill says this team had some health issues, also got healthy late until Coverdale hurt his ankle again. Oh, you're talking about that team, yeah. Ed, Weird that this game didn't go down to the wire like many IU games this year. Well, that's because Indiana was knocking the lights out, just dominating this game, not turning the ball over, taking care of the ball, assist. They were moving the ball. Everybody is hitting. Everybody was scoring. 5 guys in double figures. Then Deron Davis with 9 points on top of that. So a great balanced effort by this team, and they are playing extremely well right now. Dave White shouts out Hornsby, Cal Hornsby.
How many guys on that team made threes? It was just crazy. It was
Zach McRoberts, this team's Kyle Hornsby. Probably doesn't have the offensive ability of Kyle.
Zero comparison.
Roger wants to know, why isn't Romeo more aggressive on offense? Is it tonight he didn't have to be? Because I pointed that out. We were looking at the stats. Everybody is scoring and doing a lot. And Romeo had 9 points early on. He only took 8 points all night long. And that was not a lot more, that was not a lot in the second half.
I like about that is I didn't feel like Romeo got to the point where it was time to get his. It was time for him to shoot the ball. He let everything come to him. He played within the system. He didn't look selfish at all, which I'm not saying he usually does. I think Indiana relies on him way too much. And they throw the ball in his hands, and everybody stands there and looks at him and waits for him to do something. And so tonight was a much more balanced effort, and you had different guys driving and kicking. And, the ball just he wasn't the open guy. Maybe we would have said how many games ago, we would have said if you take Romeo out of the game, Indiana probably didn't have a chance to win, because other guys weren't stepping up. But obviously tonight that wasn't the case.
Plus, I'm quite certain that Romeo was probably a focus of Illinois' defense.
Sure, of course. That's when they go into it, if they say, hey, if we take Juwan and Romeo or one of those two out of it, they're not going to beat us with one scorer. And how many games this year, if Romeo only had 8 or 9 points, would we have said that they got beat? Or I think he had 10 points. But, they would have gotten beat in games like that. That's where you have to give the other guys credit. And I give Romeo an enormous amount of credit. Romeo is green light. Like, he is beyond green light. And he can shoot coming across half court if he wants to. And he didn't force it. He didn't do that. He didn't become selfish.
Not at all. Eric asked, what was the final stats on the free throws tonight for Indiana? Well, they were 13 of 18 for 72% as a team. That's probably as good as you're going to get for this team. I mean, it's not bad. It's not great compared to some teams of the past, Indiana. But for this team, 72%, you're going to take that all day long. They did a good job there. And they've been doing that here of late. They got into that funk in the middle of the season where none of them could hit a free throw. It was like a disease that just spread, but they've gotten back through it. Again, last year, no better example than Deron Davis last year. He just literally looked like Shaquille O'Neal shooting free throws.
He didn't want to be at the
This year, he just smooth stroke back there, knocks him down. Completely confident. This entire team is looking confident right now in every aspect of the game.
They are. I mean, we've not been able to say that it's not like we can say that for the last 10 games, but we can say it for the last few games. And hey, that's what we've been asking for, so we have to give them credit. I mean, we picked on them when it wasn't working out, so we got to give them credit when they are doing it right now.
Well, what more can we ask of this team than what they're doing right now? Because I think that they just continue to do this, which is all anybody's asked all year long. But this is what everybody's been clamoring for, because they knew that was there. That the talent was there. Not necessarily the outside shooting is still not there, but they're able to do enough. And when they play within themselves, they don't have to rely on that. They can just use it as a complementary piece.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, this effort tonight was, you could go down guy by guy and you could say, other than maybe Romeo, I mean, yeah, if Romeo had got hot, he would have had 17 points, and then we would have said everyone did exactly what we wanted them to do. But other than that, I mean, you could go down guy by guy and say, this might have been Rob Finney's best game. And this might have been one of Duran's best games. And this might have been one of Juwan's best. I mean, he had 40 in a game or whatever, so probably not. But, I mean, you could go down the list and say, he did what we wanted him to. He did what we wanted him to. He did what we expected. And when you can say that, I just said it a few games ago, guys were not playing up to their potential. And when they don't, or what we expect out of them, and when they don't, they can't win. Obviously, when they do, they can beat teams by 20 on the road.
They weren't playing up to their potential on either side of the ball. Roger points out that they're confident on defense right now too. They are. They're shutting people down.
They are.
They're playing shutdown defense.
There was a couple times tonight when I saw guys anticipating the rotations, and that's a Coach Knight thing. When you can see the play ahead on defense, offense, where you have to learn that. It's just part of his offense. But when you can see it on defense and you're seeing where you need to rotate to on the next pass, I saw that a couple times now out of both Romeo and Jawan. And when you're seeing guys do that, you know they've slowed the game down in their mind. And when you can slow the game down, generally guys can't do it till later in their career. I couldn't. A lot of better players can do it. Like Romeo could do it earlier in their career. And when you can slow the game down and you see things happening ahead of time, it's so much easier to play. And that's why veteran guys, juniors and seniors generally play better because you learn that over experience. And this is fun to see right now.
For the most of this season, I saw them playing very reactively, never proactively. And what you're talking about now is they're being proactive on defense. They know what's coming next because they've gotten a grasp of this defensive scheme, but they also seem like they're paying attention, either whether it's watching film or whatever it takes to be ready to anticipate that next move instead of reacting. They are being proactive, and it's making a hell of a difference.
It's just fun. It's funny because when you are dominating a game, statistically, like they did in this game, things seem to be easier. Like I don't know why it is. When you fall behind, it just seems like the game's going at a faster pace, and you can't quite catch up to it. And the pass always gets there right before your fingertips, or the guy's able to lay it in just past your hands. And when you get a game like this, it's the opposite. You're the one scoring on them because we've slowed the game down. We've figured out a way to be confident and be in control of the pace of the game. And when Indiana wanted to drive it, they drove it. When they wanted to sit back and let some time come off the clock, they sat back. And when you're dictating how the defense has to play, you're in control of the game. And that's what Indiana was so good at for all the Bob Knight years. And that's what this team did tonight. So I've complained so much about it when they don't do it. So I'm going to give them a ton of credit when they do.
Well, it says they bought in. They look completely bought in now. Dave says, I really think that we're going to surprise some teams if we get in. We were having to change the whole game plan with so many injuries. Rob, namely, even when he came back, he had to shake the rust off. Yes, he did. It's back to business as usual, like when they were 12-2. Well, let's hope so. They're playing better than when they were 12-2, to be honest with you. This is the best that they have played. This is the most complete they have played because they were doing it on both sides of the ball. Offensively, defensively, moving the ball, hitting some shots, playing well across the board, and everybody contributing. This team did not do that all year long. I don't care if it was a Marquette game. They didn't play that way then.
That many guys didn't contribute like that. I hate that we're in March the 7th before we're able to finally say that they're doing it, but at least we're saying it this year, and we're not going into a summer saying, what's the potential for next season. And I'm a basketball nerd. This is obviously the greatest time of the year for somebody like me, and I love that Indiana has a chance in it right now. I'm so tired of the years when they don't even have a chance, and so this is it's exciting for me. I hope that they're able to pull it off because the NCAA tournament just has a little bit different feel when they're in it for me.
Before I forget again, I want to thank you. We're coming to you live from Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, as we have many times for these road games. Thanks a lot to Mike Stockton and the crew here taking care of us. The food is incredible, great place. Not a better place to watch a game outside of Assembly Hall than right here. Also, Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. Let Dr. J and Roger Reynolds take care of your family as they have for Hoosier families for over 30 years. Doctors J and Roger Reynolds of Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. And John Sweetland from Sweetland Sanitation and Waste Removal. Great friends of the show. We appreciate them as well as being one of our great sponsors. We appreciate them. As you can catch the show each Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 a.m. in the mornings live. You can find us on WXUW XVW 1450 96.1 in Southern Indiana, Louisville on 97.7 The Rep in Evansville at 11 a.m. and at thedailyhoosier.com, indianasportsbeat.com, or thegruelingtruth.net live at any time, of course, or any time for that matter, and on any place to where you catch podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Apple, iPad, who knows, iTunes, all that stuff, any of those. But Todd joins us each and every Friday, as he'll be with us tomorrow. If you didn't get enough of this tonight, 7 hours from now, tell me, I'll be driving on. We'll be back at this tomorrow morning as Indiana prepares now to take on Rutgers on Sunday. The Indiana women play tomorrow in the Big Ten tournament. I don't know what time they play, so you have to check that out. But we'll know in the morning. But check us out there. Thanks a lot for joining us. We appreciate it. We appreciate everybody here at Bubba's 33. For Todd, Leary, I'm Jim Coyle, and I will see you on the radio.